Welcome back. I know it's been a little minute. I know it's been a while, and with that being said, I'll say it's been quite the transitional period. There's been a lot of stuff going on. Just new seasons, different career paths. Just kind of a season of just being quiet. Revisiting things that God's spoken in the past. Just being slow, there's times it's like we get to moving and we have to sit down a little bit and maybe look at things we've overlooked before, or revisit things we thought we covered, well, and go back and just kind of look over the past seasons and kind of make sure we picked up everything that God put down, and so just been stuff going on, and with that being said, I definitely do have things that are lined up, and I do got things that are planned, and I'm looking forward to this next year. I got a bunch of stuff that I want to do, and so with that being said, today is going to be a quicker episode. You know what I mean? I actually wanted to kind of invite you guys in to just something I've been looking at, something that I've been going back to over and over again and just really chewing on. And that's because it's been, something I've been going through. And I was actually inspired by this sweatshirt. If you're listening to the audio, if I can actually get it up, I don't know why it won't let me. Anchor will not let me upload the audio. Tried like 50 times now. So it's a little frustrating. But if you're on the video, I'm gonna stand up. Maybe you can see this sweatshirt. So I got this sweatshirt on, and so you see on the camera. And basically, what it is it's a hoodie, and it's got Job 23 verse 8 through 10 paraphrased on, and it says, "When I cannot see, still I am held." And it's like a dark sky with the face of God very faint in the background, and then you see like a man holding a light, and it's like the hand of God is still there, right? And the guy can't perceive that he's there. And so, with that being said, there's a lot of seasons that I find that in God where it's these deep valleys of where you can't hear, you can't see, you can't perceive. It feels like God has just completely forsaken you, and you just have to trust that He's still working, that He's still, on your team. He's still, got your back. He's still on your side. And in those seasons, it could be extremely challenging because, again, we are beings that live off our senses. And so this walk of faith overall is already a challenge to that, But thank God that the Holy Spirit and God, they are real. Jesus is real. And so there is a tangibility to this, and there is times that we can hear His actual voice clearly. There is times that the scriptures just come to life, and there is times we can feel His tangible power and His presence, and so all that is real. But there's times that that's just not there, and so first thing I want to tell you right off the bat, just to encourage you, is if you've ever felt like God has just left you, or you have gone long periods of time where you're just like, what is going on? Where is God at in my life? I want to tell you, you are not alone. And the next thing I want to tell you is, if God gave up on you and God took His hand off your life and He just turned His back on you, then why are you still alive? Because the devil came to kill, steal, and destroy. And so if God, the mediator, Jesus, just took His hand off your life, then what is keeping the devil from killing you? Because if God's mercy and His favor wasn't on your life, His plan, His purposes wasn't, His word, His will was not for you, then what's stopping the enemy from killing you? Because he would. And that's something that God told me a while ago that's really helped me with that. Like, okay, Josh, you think you feel forsaken right now? Well, then why are you still alive? Because the devil will kill you real quick if I took my hand off your life. And you know what I mean? And I was like, good point. You know what I mean? So I want to tell you that you definitely are still here for purpose, and God's still with you. And so, and I'm gonna say that just to add a little more context before we jump into this, because this will be more of a Bible study. Before I get into it, I'm gonna give you a little more context of what where I'm at. Is this has been a very interesting season. The reason I say that is because a lot is happening. Like, a lot of opportunities are happening. A lot of doors are opening, like, in crazy ways. And then simultaneously, God is being extremely silent And that makes me nervous because not all good things are God. And so it makes me nervous because I'm like, I'm trying to look for God's wisdom in this all. I'm like, okay, is this really discern? Like, okay, is this from God? Or is this a distraction to burn me out? Or is this a this or that? Or, you know what I mean? And so with all that being said, it's interesting. It's like all this stuff is happening. And I'm like, I guess God is just trusting that my wisdom is his wisdom. You know what I mean? That I'll be wise enough to base my decisions off his wisdom that he's revealed to me. And so it's a very, it's a very interesting, because it's like that tangible presence, that very clear hearing. A lot of the ways that I've experienced God in the past is not there right now. And so this scripture has just really been speaking to me, and I've just been chewing on it. And so I'm gonna share it with you. I'm gonna break it down with you, because I'm not one of those people that's always feeling God's presence every day. And I know there's some people, and I'm jealous of them. I call them spoiled Christians. It's like they say they feel God's presence every day. They sing a worship song, feel his presence. And I know what that's like. I had a season or two like that. You know what I mean? But I think in a lot of ways, for most of us, that's not how it is. And so don't be discouraged if that's how you feel like it is, because at some point God takes the training wheels off. And in many ways, as much as his presence is supposed to be a part of the Christian life, it's very easy to do the Christian life when you have his presence. And so I don't know that we grow too much when we don't go through these seasons of silence and this what's going on. And it's all throughout the Psalms, and that's what's comforted me with it all. And so let me get into this real quick though. So this is Job 23. I'm going to go from verse 8 to 17. I'm just going to read it through, and then I'm going to go back and break down a couple things about it. So verse 8, he says, "Behold, I go forward, but he is not there, and backward, but I do not perceive him. On the left hand, when he is working, I do not behold him. He turns to the right hand, but I do not see him. But he knows the way that I take. When he has tried me, I shall come out as gold. My foot has held fast to his steps. I have kept his way and have not turned aside. I have not departed from the commandments of his lips. I have treasured his words, the words of his mouth, more than my portion of food. But he is unchangeable, and who can turn him back? What he desires that he does, for he will complete what he appoints for me. And many such things in his mind. Therefore I am terrified at his presence, when I consider that I am in dread of him. God has made my heart faint. The Almighty has terrified me. Yet I am not silenced because of the darkness, nor because thick darkness covers my face." And so, jumping right into it, what we see right off the bat is we see Job saying, and we know the story of Job, most of us, if not, essentially Job had a lot of good things, and Satan came basically and challenged God in a sense to, and God said, "Have you considered my servant Job?" He knew that he was upright. And so in Job 2, he basically talks about Job's integrity. And that's going to be another podcast I'm going to do down the road, or within the next month or two. But anyways, Job gets his daughters die, his animals get killed. Satan basically gets to do everything to Job but kill him. He gives him sores, all types of trials, and just traumatic things happening in his life. And so Job is staying, he's not cursing God, basically. He's keeping integrity. And so this is in 23, so this is later in the story, basically. And he says, "Behold, I go forward," but he's not there. He goes backward, but I do not perceive him. And so he says, "But when he is working on the left hand." Now, if you look at that word hand in the Hebrew, the word is simol. And it basically means enwrapped, enveloped in darkness. So we get this idea that his hand is a hand enveloped in darkness. So we see that there's a hand that is covered, but it's active. So he's saying his hand is moving, but it's covered. I can't see him. And he says, "But he knows the way that I take." And he says, "When he has tried me, I shall come out as gold." And so I want to stop right there for a second, because first he says this hand is dark and I can't see it. And then the word that's used for behold is kazah. And it actually means to mentally perceive, contemplate with pleasure. So when you behold God, when you could see his hand moving, it gives you a pleasure. It gives you a sense of beholding him, his glory, the beauty of God working in your life. It gives you a pleasure. For at his right hand are pleasures forevermore. The fullness of joy is in his presence, right? That's what Psalm 16 says. And so he says, look, his hand is covered. I can't see it. And I've lost the ability to behold what he is doing. I've lost the ability to partake in the joy and the comfort of seeing what he is doing. And so then he says, look, when I've been tried, I will come forth as gold. And so we see this all throughout the Bible. You know what I mean? The Bible says that our faith is to be tested and to be tested and tried. We see the psalmist say, test my heart, Lord. And Jeremiah 17 says, try my heart, test my mind, search me, O Lord. Find a wicked thing in me. So he says, look, this is how, back to the podcast I did about affliction, he says, look, for when I have been tested, I will come forth as gold. When I've been tried. And then it says, my foot held fast to his steps. I've kept his ways. So there again, we see this integrity. We see this integrity in the moments when we feel farthest from God. When we feel like God has left us, we get weak in that place, and the devil comes in, and that's when he starts throwing everything at us, all the doubts. Just like Jesus was tempted in the desert, it says when he got weak, Satan came. And so we see this same thing happening. He says, look, I've kept my ways, though. I didn't turn aside. I didn't depart from his commandments of his lips. And he said, not only did I not turn away from the commandments of his lip, but he says, I treasure his words more than my food. And guys, I don't know about you guys watching, but I find myself in this place all the time where I'm literally about to eat and I'm like, dude, I don't want anything. Like, I don't want food. I don't want the movie. I don't want any of these things. I just want his word. I just want his presence. That's what I want more. This food I know is not going to fill me, because we don't live off bread alone, but every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And Job understood this. Job is very, very spiritual, very deep. Job is my favorite book in the Bible. I could just do the rest of my podcast off the book of Job, honestly, but it's my favorite. But anyways, he says, but he is unchangeable. Who can turn him back? So basically, Job understands, look, this is a point of surrender. God is going to do what he is going to do. All I can do is stay faithful to his word and keep and hold fast to my integrity. And so I think it's actually in chapter 24, 25, he says, for the rest of my life, I will just keep my integrity no matter what happens after this passage here. But so anyways, he says, look, for he will complete what he appoints for me. And this is very encouraging to hear, right? Because God says, look, he says, I'll come out as gold after this is all done. But then he says, look, whatever he has appointed to me, and that word appoint actually means bonded to, bound, and a couple words I can't think of right now off the top of my head. But that was one that was interesting to me, because you are bound. God has said a word to you that is bound to you, and a purpose and a plan that is bound to you. You know what I mean? And so he says, look, whatever he's appointed for my life, it will be accomplished. So that comes with the bad and it comes with the good. So if you just stay steadfast in this place, if you just stay steadfast in this place of darkness, in this enveloped hand, in this place of not being able to perceive and behold, and maintain your integrity and maintain an upright heart, God will finish what he started. He will complete what he has appointed for your life. It says in Luke, it says, don't put your hand to the plow. If anyone puts his hand to the plow and turns back, he's not fit for the kingdom of heaven. It's this plow that once we get born again and decide to follow Jesus, we put our hands to a plow, and we decide we commit our ways to push that plow, regardless of what happens. But the encouraging thing is that God will complete what he's appointed for you. And so then he says, look, I'm terrified at his presence. And this word actually for terrified, I want to say, I forgot to write it down actually, but hold on one second. Look, because this was a good one. This is actually Bahal. That's what the word is, Bahal. I did write it down. Okay. And so look, it says, this is it doesn't mean terrorized. It actually means alarmed or agitated, dismayed, and it says to tremble inwardly. And again, this goes with this theme of not being afraid of God. It's just Job is understanding the bigness of God, the glory of God, and it says, "Look, this God that does all these things, I am terrorized. I am troubled by this." You know what I mean? And so he says, "I'm terrified at His presence." I'm sorry, I'm mixing my words a second. I'm terrified at His presence. So there again, it's the acknowledgement of who God is in Job, who He is in this order, right? In this ranking system, if you will, or this, who's more superior? Obviously, God. And he says, when I consider this, I'm in dread. He says, God has made my heart faint. So again, he's captivating this image of I'm feeling weak. When we look at the word faint, so he says, my heart is faint. And that word is rakak, right? And I'm not fluent in Hebrew, so I might not be speaking that properly 100%. But what it actually means, though, is to be made soft. It just means soft and tender. So it's not that his heart is breaking. God's making his heart soft and tender because it is in that humility of God breaking us down to a place where we're pliable, and where we're malleable and able to be turned and moved. It says in the Proverbs, I think it's Proverbs 25. It says, or no, Proverbs 21. It says that God, make my heart like a stream in your hand, turn it where thy will. The king's hand, or the king's heart, is like a stream in the Lord's hand. And that's what he wants to do. You know what I mean? And sometimes he uses these types of things to break us down to that place. And typically, honestly, if I'm honest, a lot of people lose their faith in these places. I've even had my faith very crazy tested, but then God will show up when you're like at the end of yourself, like. And so anyways, he says, look, he my heart has grown faint, and the Almighty has terrified me. He said, look, but this is, and I'm going to end with this, the last verse. He says, but I'm not silenced because of the darkness, nor because thick darkness covers my face. Now, this word silence doesn't mean to be quiet. It means I'm not consumed. I'm not destroyed. It's samath. That's what the word is in Hebrew. And so he says, look, I'm not destroyed because of this darkness. And the word there in darkness, because you see darkness is used twice there. The first darkness that's used is koshek. And it actually means ignorance, sorrow, wickedness, misery. So this isn't like a light darkness. This is death, ignorance, sorrow, wickedness. Okay, and he says, look, I'm not silenced. I'm not cut off because of my ignorance towards what God's doing. I'm not destroyed because of what I can't perceive is happening. I'm not cut off from God's goodness because of this sorrow in my heart. That's what's going on there. But then it's crazy because then you look and then you see death being used again, or darkness being used again. And this one is Ophel. And this one actually just means darkness. It just means, the darkness, obscurity. And so he says, look, I'm not silenced. I'm not cut off, aka I'm not cut off. I'm not destroyed because of what I can't perceive, nor because of the thick darkness that covers my face. And so I just think that's a beautiful way to end this verse, and so basically what we could gather from this, if I had to sum it all up, we could of course just keep going deeper into it, break down everything, but that was that was a theme of what I believe I've gotten out of it over the past few weeks that I've been looking at it. And I think what I gather from this is just this unrelenting trust that Job had for God. He had a unwavering faith for God. He says, look, I am just confident. He says, look, I know, all I can see is bad stuff happening. I don't perceive God doing anything. I don't hear anything, feel anything, perceive anything. Everything's covered in darkness. I can't behold what he's doing. I can't see. I move all around. Nothing's happening, right? All I see is negative stuff happening. But in that, he holds and clings to two things. He clings to the fact that after he'll be tried in this, because he understands he's being tried, he's coming forth as gold. Guys, I can tell you firsthand that every time I go through a valley, they get deeper and they get darker and they get longer. But guess what? Every time I come out on a new mountaintop, it's higher than the one before. Every year, I look back and I say, wow, I'm stronger this year than last year. You know what I mean? And so that's what I want everyone to get out of this, is that we have to keep our minds ahead and see that there is a mountaintop at the other end of this. And this is not me just trying to motivate you. This is the ways of God. He's a God of hills and valleys. And so Job is certain of one thing. He's coming out as gold. And then the other thing is that God will complete what he has appointed for him. God is unchanging, and that God will carry out what he's decided to do, whether or not we're with it. And the best thing that we can do in these circumstances is to trust that it will come out in a pure place. And our best weapon in this place is our integrity and having an upright heart, because the Bible says, and I'm going to do a podcast just on integrity and upright hearts, because it is huge. I actually think it's probably one of the top 5 weapons of warfare. And it's not one you hear talked about. You hear joy, the joy of my Lord is my strength. Praise is my warfare. This is how I win my battles. And then there was fragrance. Then it turned fire. Let me stop. I don't know why I sang it like that. But I believe integrity and upright hearts, I believe that's one of your top warfares. If you can keep integrity, it says God delivers the integrity. It says he keeps those with integrity. It guides. There's so many Psalms, I can't even rattle them all off my head in order right now. But I'm going to do one on it. And so with all that being said, I just want to encourage you, man, whoever's watching, that's kind of where I've been. I've been in that season of just embracing it and just coming, just surrender. I trust you're good. This always passes. I'm gonna keep my head and just try to manage, because guys, let me tell you another thing before I end this. Your soul is your responsibility. God, he saved your spirit, but us managing our emotions, our attitudes, that's on us. That's part of that's something that we have to steward. And so that's why here's the other thing, and this is the last thing I think I'm going to end with for my closing. Guys, you could have crusades, revivals, heal the sick, all these crazy good things. You could have a platform of 2 million followers, 500,000 followers, whatever it is. They do not impress God. God's not impressed by them, because it's only by God's grace that you're doing it, and that he's allowed you to do it by his mercy, and because he allowed it. They do not impress God. The good works you do not impress him. What impresses him is having integrity in a trial. That's what impresses God. That's why God was impressed with Job. Keeping the right attitude, an upright heart. Not turning to, I think I can get away with this little thing no one's watching because a bunch of crap is happening to me. I deserve one little slice of my own little, you know what I mean? No. Integrity through the trial. Integrity in the rain. Integrity in the storm. Integrity. I'm going to tell you, that is it. That's what pleases God. That's what impresses God. When God could see, man, these people are tearing him up. He's surrounded by people doing him dirty. I'm not even doing anything that he could perceive. I know he hasn't felt my presence for a long time. He hasn't heard my voice in a while. But man, he's holding fast. It's steadfast love. It's long suffering. Fruits of the Spirit. You know what I mean? Integrity in a trial. That's what pleases God, makes God smile upon you. There's a psalm or proverb that says, "Be wise, my son, and make your father glad." You want to make God glad? Be wise. Be wise in your trials and have integrity in your trials. You'll make God smile. You make him proud, and you'll impress him. But with all that being said, I'm going to end there. Job 23, 8 through 10. When I cannot see, still I am held. All right. Thank you all for tuning in.